All right. Hello, everybody. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's me, Jabri, again, coming with another interview through Coins for Humanity for our YouTube documentary series. Really just talking to people within the community about their experience with HIV and AIDS. So today we have a special person
Johnson.
named Johnson. How old are you, Johnson?
I'm 22 years old.
22 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you do? What do you do?
I am a student at Zitec University. I work at NEFAC. It's an NGO.
What is it called again?
NEFAC. It's a network. It's a organization where people living with HIV come united.
And pronounce it one more time.
NEFAC.
How do you spell it?
NAPHEK.
Nefak.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you do there?
Mostly I coordinate the youth and adolescent relations mostly.
And with the youth that's there, what are some experiences that they've had with HIV and AIDS?
The youth. The experiences that they have is we expose them to meetings, advocacy meetings, empower them to become to overcome the stigma that they face during their social lives.
So, when you talk about stigma around HIV and AIDS, what stigma do you face in terms of being HIV positive?
Well, I can say I didn't face stigma directly as an individual. However, what I hear from people, mostly it's stigma, mostly from their friends and family.
And what does that stigma look like? What are they experiencing?
The most they say that people talk ill about them, treat them differently. And they are given new things, like example, if you buy house items, they also buy different items for the HIV positive child.
Wow, that's really interesting because in America, that level of stigma. Americans who were HIV positive would experience that level too. Really, in the first early years, and even still now, people would have a different set of utensils, different set of spoons, really because they didn't understand how HIV is transmitted. So, what are some things that your organization is doing to decrease the stigma or really trying to decrease the amount of new infections with youth?
So we at NEFAC we created an initiative called Sautiskika. It's an initiative for the adolescents alone. So it's the administrators are adolescents from the highest ranked to the lowest. All members are adolescents. We teach them, we empower them to become the leaders of tomorrow. We empower them to overcome stigma. We empower them to make their own decisions and how to cope with stigma.
So stigma seems to be a really big thing here in Kenya.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's because of the lack of education.
The lack of education around HIV,
Yeah, formal education.
formal education. So in schools, they don't talk about HIV and sexual health?
In schools, they talk about it, but the interpretation that the students get from the teacher is HIV kills. It is what was portrayed on the textbooks. Like example, you can find a textbook has been drawn a skinny guy looking almost about to die. That's how they
Wow.
describe somebody who is HIV positive.
So there, it seems to me that the education here is around HIV being like this death sentence. That as soon as you get it, you lose weight, you become skinny, and you die.
Yeah.
So why? How? So we've known about HIV and AIDS for over 30 years now. How come you think Kenyans aren't really progressed in terms of their messaging around HIV and AIDS?
Well, I can say Kenyans have progressed from the view of, from the range of about the year of, between the year 1995 and 2005, that's a period of 10 years, you can see the difference. Back then in 1995, the stigma was staggering. It was very high. Like example, we as children from Nyumbani, we could not even go to primary school. We didn't get our basic education. So we had to look for a unique school to do that, which we found. But after that, the medicine came out, the ARVs came. That's when the children started to become more healthy and started blending like the other children.
And so, what's working for Kenyans right now in terms of being progressive in HIV and AIDS?
I can say it's about the care.
The care.
Yeah, the care is
So the care, because I've done other interviews since I've been here, and a lot of people talk about ARVs and how good they're doing here and how it really prolongs life. So the medical care around HIV is working, but from what I'm hearing, what's not working is really like the lack of education that still needs to be done.
Yeah, we have a lot to do on education.
And so, what is your organization doing around education with youth?
So we are partnering with different organizations, mostly organizations like the Ministry of Education. We partnered with them earlier on this year. We are starting with the girls because the girls are more vulnerable. So we started a movement that was called Keep the Girls in School. That mostly ensures that even if a girl child becomes pregnant, she has to go back to school. So we are starting there. At least it's something we started.
And why do you think girl adolescents are more at risk to becoming HIV positive?
In Africa, the girl child is mostly like the most vulnerable person in the family. So, like example, you'll see that the male side of the dominance of humanity, mostly males are dominant. So it also applies here. Girls don't have to do this. Girls don't need education. All their work is stay home, stay mom. So we saw there was a very big gap.
And so, how can you close that gap? Or how is your organization working to close that gap?
Ensuring them going back to school
So,
or starting school.
education. Yeah, education is key. What are some goals that your organization has for the next few years for the future moving forward?
Our goal is to reduce stigma in our society, reduce new infections, not even reduce, stop new infections, and provide treatment for the people who we found and aren't on treatment.
What type of HIV testing campaigns do you have here in Kenya?
Mostly we don't have that much. We only campaign about safe sex only. Before, back then there was a lot of campaigns, but since the campaigns also triggered more stigma, it kind of went underground.
How did they trigger more stigma? That's interesting.
Because if you start campaigning that, saying that a HIV person can look like you and I, people look like, even my friend is HIV positive. So everybody was like afraid of each other.
And how often do people get tested here?
6 months.
Every 6 months. And how do people get to test? Like, do they have mobile testing units that take cars out to the villages around, or how do people know where to get tested?
There is a facility called VCT, Voluntary Counseling and Testing. It's all over the country. Everybody knows about it. They are also mobile, and I think in every dispensary in the country, it has a VCT center.
Okay. So that's interesting because I saw one of those when I was in Shimoni last year. So Shimoni is like a port village on the coast of Kenya.
Yeah.
So there was the dispensary in front, but in the back there was like a little building where they would do counseling and testing back there.
Yeah.
And what type of okay, so in the United States, with some of our testing and counseling programs, we do risk reduction. So we have a conversation with people about their HIV risk. So we ask them, who are your partners? What type of behaviors do you engage in sexually, or what type of drug behaviors do you engage in? And then based off of what they say, we help them to look at their behaviors and connect it to ways that they can decrease it. For example, we might have a conversation with someone and they may say, I don't have access to condoms. Or they may say, that they don't know the HIV status of their partners, or I've had people say that, they're not ready to stop injecting drugs. So one thing that I've counseled as an HIV counselor is with substance users is that if they're not ready to stop using drugs, then maybe when they shoot drugs with other people, see if they can try to shoot first with a clean new needle. So that reduces the risk of them contracting HIV or STDs, or people who have issues with condom use. I encourage them to think about using female condoms. So the females that they are with can put in a condom up to 8 hours before, and so now they're protected as a couple, so that they don't have to worry about putting on a condom. Certain things like that. So when people are doing testing and counseling here, how are they being? What conversations are they having around reducing the risk?
I think it's more like the same in the US. It's basically the same. However, I can differ about the condom use. Since in Kenya we campaign about condoms mostly, so I think it's abundant in Kenya.
It's what?
It's everywhere.
Condoms.
Yes, you can like if you go to public toilets, you'll find a box just right next to the place where you dry your hands. You'll find a small box. For it's always full with condoms.
Now, if it's always full, does that mean that people are using the condoms?
I am saying in a perspective of an early morning,
Yeah.
or if you are the first person to enter into the toilet.
So where are these condoms? Because I went to Nairobi a couple of days ago. Went to a few public bathrooms and I didn't see any condoms. So
Mostly they're in the public buildings,
like what?
like I can say hospitals, and even hospitals after they cancel you as a pre-measure, they just give you a box of condom even if you're just alone.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So condom use is big here, which is really good. What about substance users, people who inject drugs? What conversations are Kenyans having around that?
I can't say much on that.
Yeah.
I can't. However, I can just say that conversations about drug use, I think they wanted to start, like example, the people who inject themselves. Instead of injecting themselves with the drugs, since it's already addictive, they try and inject themselves with substances that also have ARVs. So at the end of the day, they just inject themselves with their ARVs. I'm not sure if it happened, but I just heard it.
Yeah, so we'll have to do more research about that.
Yeah.
So what is the takeaway that you want people in the United States to know about youth and HIV and here in Kenya?
I would want them to know that we have a life. We have a full life behind us and in front of us. The troubles that we had back then are no more. we are aspiring to do more. We are aspiring to become great people. And by the help from their part and our effort, I know we will achieve it.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important because a lot of times when I talk to people, I let people know that the humanity of a person who's HIV positive has to come first. Like people aren't their disease.
Yeah.
You know, that's only one part of them. They have all these other great things about them. You know, you have people who, youth who are artists, who are singers, dancers, all these different things outside of their HIV virus. And so for you to say that you guys have a life and that you're aspiring to do great things, I'm glad that you said that, you know. And so, wow, what a great interview. Thank you so very much.
Pleasure.
Have a good one. All right. Bye, everybody.